talk to me a little bit about what drives you in the work. Is it primarily the experimentation with media? I see a lot of that in your work. Or is it I have experienced something in nature or in my imagination, and now I'm attempting to capture that. Do you understand what I'm looking at? Is what's the what's the relationship between the discovery in the media and the execution of something that you've seen or thought about? That's I know it's a hard question, but
Yeah. Um, well, artists don't like to talk about the meaning of their work.
right,
They like to communicate by the work being in between us. Okay.
right,
I'm not saying artists don't ever like to communicate directly,
right,
obviously they
right,
do. But when we're making a piece of art, I want the piece of art to be something that you experience. And the meaning that you get out of it would not be the same meaning that other people
right,
get out of it. Second or third time you look at it, the meaning wouldn't be the same as the first time you looked at it. If you found it good enough to go back and look at it a
right.
few more times. What gets me going, I guess, starts with just uh, the appreciation and looking deeply that I did at other artists' work.
Hmm.
When I got to college, um, first time in Washington, D.C.,
Hmm.
18 years old, first week or 10 days of school, I go with some friends of ours, David Lambergus, Frank Sassy, Jerry Price.
Yeah.
We all head downtown. We're up in uh, Northeast DC, a bit removed from the touristy mall area. But we take a bus
Yeah.
because none of us had cars. Take a bus to go downtown, and we go to the National Gallery.
Yeah.
And for the very first time, I see Monet's and Picasso's and
Yeah.
Gauguin's and Rembrandt's, and I'm just like blown away.
Mhm.
And from there, I scoured every art book in the Catholic U Library. Instead of doing some of the homework I should have been doing, I'm looking at art books, and then over the course of college years, get to see a lot more art, visiting other museums in DC and just being fascinated by it. So I start trying to do a little art of my own. I'd done some in grade school. I don't remember doing much at all in high school, but I buy some paints, buy some paper. Couldn't do much on canvases because it cost too much to get
Right.
canvases. But I did watercolors, and I enjoyed what I was doing. I did do a few canvases, but they were just not worth keeping, total experiments. So over time, I just kept that up while I was doing other things. I always had a great interest in seeing art. Living in Washington, D.C., I could do that over and over again. I had jobs where my office was just a few blocks from the National Gallery
Mhm.
or the Hirshhorn Museum. And at lunchtime, I could go see the most recent exhibit. We'd go to New York, I'd visit museums there and just see the art. So the more and more I see the art and open up to looking at it, I'm trying to figure out, how do you do this stuff? And try to take how you do it back into my own work. So then I take classes and I learn some of the basics. You're talking about materials, craft.
Mhm.
There are basics to learn
Right.
how to use, and you need to be able to use those materials. But
Can you describe the feeling that you got when you saw Renoir or Picasso? What was it? Was you mentioned the message before, the meaning.
yeah,
I would guess not. It was more a a gut response to what you're perceiving visually,
it's both.
the
It's
color,
both.
the design.
Sometimes it's their view of the world. They can be expressing emotions. So you could see those emotions coming through. They might just be expressed like a Monet, just expressing the beauty of light reflecting off of things, and color harmonies, composition, textures, all of those things, and just loving to look at that deeply and seeing it. And maybe another thing I should mention, I'm a visual learner, and I had very early childhood experience. Pre-school, I had eye surgery to correct one of my eyes was turning, it was cross-eyed. And so I had to go a couple of days the way they did it then. I had to go a couple of days with both eyes bandaged. So it's like being blind as a preschooler.
Wow.
Which was a little troubling. But when I came out, it was like I could see better. Started wearing glasses, again, like I'm 3 or 4 years old, and I had to start wearing glasses my whole life, pretty much. I did have some periods where my vision was better, but anyway. So visual images stay with me better than a spoken. People give me a lecture, I don't remember it, but if I can write it down and see the words, I'll remember better. You tell me your name, I'll forget it, but if I can see your name written, I'll remember better. So, so when I'm looking at the art, I'm getting just a, visual sensation on some levels. But then I'm also seeing how is it put together, and I'm trying to get, how does it make me feel out of it.
You've organized these into different portfolios or different groupings. How did you think in terms of the grouping as you were doing the work, or was that all post hoc?
It was afterwards.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I'm just intentionally, like if you take this piece here, I had my sketchbook out on a camping trip someplace, and this is down by a stream, and I'm just, that's interesting rock formation there, and the tree and the roots, and it's just an observation recorded. This is not looking at anything, but using from my imagination what a guy's head would look like, and using lots of little scratchy approach to, not trying to outline everything, but just trying to fill it in. You can see a few of these. This is some of my pretty early work from the 1970s, probably right after I got out of college. I felt comfortable doing geometric and coloring inside the lines, if you will. And then this series, it's similar, except now I'm using tape to keep the lines straight. Taping.
Maybe you could describe what you did to me before, the next process that you went through.
Sure. I mentioned I got started on this process trying to do might be like a commission piece, if you will, but just for the family. My daughter and son-in-law wanted me to do a painting for them. And he wanted something that's a little more geometric. He's an architect. That's what he's interested in. I said, sure, I'll try that. So I was doing it here. They're in New York. I was going to send it. So I didn't want it to be a big painting to try to ship in a package. So I made 4 smaller paintings, but that they could be grouped to be a big painting. Yeah. And actually the advantage of that is they can be grouped in many ways to make a square painting or rectangular paintings if you spread them out. So I start with a grid, figure out how I would do colors. So I didn't want each square or rectangle shouldn't be next to another square or rectangle that has the same color. So I have to have enough colors.
Mapping process.
Map it, yeah. So I try a few different ways of mapping, start filling in the base layer, and then seeing how that works when I rearrange the 4 paintings in different formats. And then I get to the point where I'm ready to do the next layer on top. And so I'm doing pretty evenly spaced 1/4-inch masking tape all through for all 4 paintings. And then on top of that masking tape, I'm making more decisions about what colors to go on the grid that's going on top of the lower version. And this grid is just going to be made up of stripes, not of solids.
So it seems to me that you're discovering as you go through the process.
Absolutely.
It's not preconceived.
Absolutely.
You're discovering at each stage what the next step might be.
I've often found in creating the work, set myself some parameters and then work within those parameters to see what happens. So you don't really know at the beginning. Maybe you've picked a color palette. In this case, I hadn't picked a color palette to start with. I picked a grid composition, and I knew I was going to lay stripes on top of the grid. That's about all as I had as an intention when I started. And the rest was a discovery. What did I need to do to make it work?
No.
Then it got painted, and then we had different ways of arranging it. And my daughter and son-in-law have the option of, how do they want to look at it? They hung it somewhat like this. And here's another approach. This one, instead of being real linear, it's acrylic pour, where I give up control. I have colors I'm using. I have some intention of what I'm doing. I have areas in which I'm pouring the paint, but I don't have a lot of control. Like here, I started with a blue background and I poured the white in it. I thought, pretty interesting. That's like clouds. Okay, we're going with the landscape here. And then I started doing other pours, sections. Did not mask them off, but I knew I wanted to keep them in a certain area. Okay, so I tried to do just enough of a pour so it wouldn't roll all over the place. It would go where I wanted to go. And the colors like Southwest Sedona, but this is going to end up looking like a mountain scene, but it's not any specific mountains. It's just mountains.
Okay.
And start adding the foreground. And each of these I'd have to wait. Each of these sections, I'd have to wait for it to dry if it's going to bump up against another section. So this one took a while. Also, this painting is 5 feet high by about 3.5 feet wide, something like that. So it's big.
You're doing this with the canvas flat on the table or on the ground?
Yeah.
No.
So that it doesn't roll into places I don't want it to roll into. This last part here, I might have brushed some to keep it within bounds, getting the little landscape in. My friend Steve Eilers was looking at this as his work in progress. He says, you need a little more dark here in the foreground to make it come closer to the viewer. Because I wanted this to seem like you're standing on the edge of what's like a canyon or something. Right. Yeah. Right. So that was a step in the process too, to add some dark colors down here, which I probably also did with the brush. Collage work for me gives you a lot of options of looking at different ways of arranging things. Before it's paint on canvas, it's either if you don't like it, you got to paint over it. With collage, you just move the stuff around so you get to approximately where you want to go.
When you're selecting objects for your collage, is it the content or the shape and color that you're looking at?
It's both. Sometimes in a collage, you're really looking at the shapes to make the image. Let me go back. Say this one here. A lot of that is getting the shape right. Copying from a photograph to see those shapes. The outline of the head, face and head. I need darks for the dark area and light. And so I went to the matte paper that I had that I was going to cut up, and the ocean dark became the dark parts, and then land became the light parts.
Yeah, but you didn't look at the map and see, well, this looks like a nose, this looks like a forehead. No, that's interesting, because that's what I would have thought you had done. Just like when I look at a cloud, I see a shape, that sort of thing.
I mean, I've sometimes done it that way, but for this particular one, I started with. In fact, let's see if we can go right in here. This part here is cut too, this light.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, from the photograph I had, this is, so
Oh, I
the
see.
base level was this light blue, and then this cream colored we're cutting out to make the shape of the face, along
I
with the
see.
dark colors.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize it had been done that way, but it looked to me as though you had found a shape on the map.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. It looks that way.
Most of us feel inhibited after first grade. We go into first grade and we all, eagerly grab the crayons and start drawing and expressing ourselves. And then somehow between first grade and puberty, we lose that sense that I can be an artist. I can create something. Somehow the relationship between education and art gets screwed up. We start as artists, and education, for the most part, drives it out of us. Tells us, no, you can't do that. Or if you're going to be an artist, you have to do it this way. You have to be this way.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about that with your experience. You mentioned your grade school experience in art, and you gap in high school, and come back later.
Yeah.
What is it that helped you get over that inhibition?
Well, it took a while to get over the inhibition. I did a lot of things that I wasn't going to show anybody because I didn't think they turned out very well. One point. But the other point was it just becomes absorbing. When you're doing it, I can lose track of time. I'm problem solving. I'm finding something new. I'm surprised that happened. Now I have to figure out what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pleased when I see an effect that I didn't know was going to work, but it does work. But I'm just pleasing myself.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I did have to find some encouragement, and I think taking classes was one way that helped. That what to me was, I'm doing this and I like it, but I don't think anybody else is necessarily going to have my taste in my art. But when I'm taking classes, you're in the class with other people who are doing the same thing you are. They're doing their work in the class and they're putting it out there for everybody to see. And I get a lot of nice comments from other artists. Leonardo wrote in his notebook, "It should not be hard for you to stop sometimes and look into the stains of walls or ashes of a fire or clouds or mud or light places in which you may find really marvelous ideas." So that's part of what will get you back in the studio and back into trying something new.
One of the last things I wanted to talk about, and certainly there's a lot more that we could cover, obviously, but what's new? What are you thinking about these days? What's your media of choice? What's going on?
I'm not sure. It's building on what I've been doing. Okay. I have a painting on canvas right there. Still finished. Okay, what's new is this is the work in progress. Take a photograph, use my Apple Pencil, see where I might go next with it. Okay.
So you're using this as a sketch pad before
on
you
top of
yeah.
the photo before I go over there and mess something up. So actually I'm leaning towards this one. I started with just the blank.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I knew actually with this painting I did start with color palette. I knew I wanted to use the purples and blues as the cool color, predominant cool color, and then the yellow as the complementary
Right.
warm color. And so I started doing the yellow in here and here. And I thought I need to make the yellow a little bolder. And then I did a wash of blue here to, focus things a little bit. I think this might look a little bit like a vagina, and maybe that's okay.
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember. Anyway,
so that's I find that fascinating because that's using the dynamic nature of what you've put down here with a very controlled and very I don't know how to describe it. It's digital. It's
I know.
Yeah. But I think that's fascinating. And in the end, what you have on there may be
just an interesting. This is an interesting piece here. I could post this on
sure
Instagram and say this is my latest painting.
Right.
And nobody knows the difference. That half of it's a painting and half is digital. But my intention is to try to, I'm not sure if I'm ending on this one. I kind of like this one. I could experiment some more. But whatever I experiment with, I'm going to go back over here and try to replicate, and it won't be exactly the same as this location.
Okay. Yeah.
But it'll help me finish that painting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I found interesting to do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's great.